Today's true incident is about a case where people's anger did not subside until the criminal was hanged. However, a few days after the hanging, some truths started emerging about the criminal that divided the public into two groups. On one hand, some people believed that the criminal deserved the punishment and hanging was justified. On the other hand, some argued that he was innocent, framed by someone else, and had not committed the crime. To know the whole truth of this incident, stay with us till the end. Before moving forward in the video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video to stay updated with such shocking incidents in society, so that you can remain alert. Now, let me tell you about this incident. In Bhowanipore, the capital of West Bengal, Kolkata, there was a society named Anand Apartment. On the third floor of this building lived a family led by Dhananjoy Parekh. His wife's name was Yashomati Ben, and they had two children, a son named Bhowanipore Parekh and a daughter named Hetal Parekh. In 1987, this family moved from Gujarat to Bhowanipore. Dhananjoy had a jewelry business, which was doing quite well in Kolkata, and their daughter Hetal attended a school named Welland Goldsmith in Kolkata. Before the Parekh family moved to Anand Apartment in 1987, a security guard had been appointed there through a security agency. This guard, Dhananjoy, was born in a place called Kolkata in West Bengal, and he had already joined his duty before the Parekh family moved in. Dhananjoy worked the morning shift, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and everything seemed to be going smoothly. In 1989, Dhananjoy married a girl named Purnima, who worked in an Anganwadi center earning ₹600 per month. Dhananjoy had married her under the pretense of being a BSF soldier, but after marriage, Purnima learned that he was actually a security guard in an apartment. However, the marriage was done, and she had no choice but to accept this truth. They moved on and started living happily. By 1990, Hetal Parekh was in the 10th grade and was preparing for her board exams, which began around March. Every morning at 7:30, she left home for her exams, returning by 1 p.m. However, on March 2nd, Hetal told her mother that the security guard downstairs was looking at her inappropriately and making vulgar comments. Her mother did not pay much attention to this. The next day, on March 3rd, Hetal again mentioned to her mother that the guard had invited her to watch a movie in a crude manner. This time, her mother, Yashomati, was angry and felt uneasy. That evening, when Hetal's father, Dhananjoy, returned home, Yashomati informed him of the guard's behavior. Enraged, Dhananjoy filed a complaint with the society's head. The society committee took immediate action, and on March 4th, the guard, Dhananjoy Chatterjee, was transferred elsewhere. On March 5th, a new security guard was supposed to start at Anand Apartment, and Dhananjoy was supposed to report for duty elsewhere. However, on the morning of March 5th, Dhananjoy did not report to his new post and instead returned to Anand Apartment at 6 a.m., continuing his duties there. By 7:30 a.m., Hetal had left for her exam, and Dhananjoy and his son had gone to work, leaving Yashomati alone at home. Hetal returned home after her exam at around 1 p.m., and everything seemed fine. However, like every evening, Yashomati went to a nearby temple at 5 p.m. for her prayers. Meanwhile, Dhananjoy's shift had ended at 2 p.m., and the night shift guard had already arrived. Dhananjoy, now off duty, changed into his personal clothes, a cream-colored shirt and pants. At around 5:20 p.m., he told his fellow security guard that he was going to the 3rd floor and would be back soon. At 5:45 p.m., when Yashomati returned from the temple, she rang the doorbell multiple times but received no response. She started banging on the door, but still, no one answered. Hearing the commotion, neighbors gathered and helped her break down the door. Upon entering Hetal's room, Yashomati screamed as she found her daughter lying in a pool of blood, her clothes torn, and her body showing signs of severe injuries. Hetal's father and brother rushed home, and the police were called at 9 p.m. Hetal's body was sent for a post-mortem, and the police began investigating the house. They found a cream-colored button, a chain, and other circumstantial evidence, including bloodstains and torn clothes. On March 6th, the police began questioning people. Hetal's father told them about the security guard's previous behavior and his complaint against Dhananjoy. The police started searching for Dhananjoy but could not find him. Hetal's mother also confirmed that the guard had been bothering her daughter and mentioned that her wristwatch was missing from the house, suspecting that Dhananjoy might have stolen it. Days later, The police finally arrested Dhananjoy in his village and found the cream-colored clothes and the missing wristwatch in his possession. He was charged with Hetal's murder and theft. Although Dhananjoy repeatedly denied any involvement, claiming he was innocent, the court found him guilty based on circumstantial evidence. Appeals in the higher courts, including the Supreme Court, upheld the death sentence, deeming it a rarest of rare case. Despite Dhananjoy's plea for mercy, he was executed on August 15, 2004, at 4:30 am in Alipore Central Jail. After his execution, debates arose, with some arguing that Dhananjoy was framed, while others believed he deserved the punishment for his heinous crime. Even after my death, this investigation will continue, and will the real killer be caught? But the policeman does not give him any answer. Now they take Dhananjoy to the execution room, where all formalities are completed. Doctors were also present there, and then Dhananjoy was handed over to Nada Malik Jala. The preparations for Dhananjoy's hanging were complete. In his final moments, Dhananjoy prayed to God that his home and family remain happy and healthy. Dhananjoy also told the people standing there that he was not guilty and that he had not committed the murder. He said he was framed, as he was a poor man, and no one would listen to him. After this, at 4:30 am, Dhananjoy was hanged at Alipore Central Jail. A little later, doctors approached Dhananjoy to see whether he was dead or still alive. Once the doctors confirmed that Dhananjoy had passed away, his body was removed from the noose. No one came from Dhananjoy's home to claim his body, as everyone believed he was a criminal. The jail authorities themselves performed Dhananjoy's last rites. The case was now closed, and everyone was expected to find peace, but that was not the case. Many people viewed the case from the victim's perspective, but some began to wonder whether it should also be looked at from Dhananjoy's point of view. In an interview, Dhananjoy had said that he did go to the 3rd floor, but not to Hetal Parekh's house. People would sometimes call him for maintenance work, and if something was broken, he would fix it or send it to a repair shop. In the interview, he also mentioned that he never misbehaved with Hetal and barely spoke to anyone there. He would only talk to people when they called him for work. However, a new story emerged years later, Dhananjoy's version. Until the moment of his execution, Dhananjoy maintained that he was innocent and never admitted to the crime. Years later, another version came to light when 2 scholars from the Indian Statistical Institute of Kolkata revisited the case. After analyzing the case, some new facts came to light. The forensic expert revealed that there were no blood stains on Dhananjoy's clothes. In this case, fingerprints could have been a crucial clue, but no prints of Dhananjoy were found at the crime scene or on Hetal's body. Hetal had 21 stab wounds on her body, but the knife was never presented in court. If we talk about the witnesses, the first witness was another security guard who claimed to have called out to Dhananjoy at 5:45 p.m. and said he saw him looking down from above. Another witness, a lift operator, initially confirmed this but later retracted, saying he saw Dhananjoy coming down at 5:45 p.m. but didn't see him going up. The accounts of both witnesses did not match. The second guard stated that Dhananjoy looked down from the 3rd floor when he called him, but there were iron grills on every floor, meaning someone below could not be seen from above. According to Hetal's mother and the security guard, she had left for the temple at 5:20 p.m. However, the lift operator stated the time as 4:01 p.m. Witnesses also claimed that Dhananjoy went to Hetal's floor at 5:02 p.m. and left by 5:45 p.m., meaning he would have had only 20 minutes to commit the crime. During this time, he would also have answered when his name was called. Many questions were raised regarding the watch found at Dhananjoy's house, as other items were also missing from the apartment that day, yet only the watch was reported stolen. The serial numbers of the stolen watch and the one found with Dhananjoy did not match. According to forensic evidence, semen was found in Hetal's undergarments, but no DNA test was conducted. Blood found at the crime scene also did not match Dhananjoy's. The post-mortem report mentioned sexual intercourse, but did not specify rape or forceful activity. One question that arose was if Hetal had complained about Dhananjoy harassing her. Why did she let him inside the house? When Hetal's mother arrived home, the door was locked from the inside. How could Dhananjoy have locked it from outside? And since Hetal was dead, she couldn't have locked it either. It was also discovered that the guard who testified against Dhananjoy had previously been reported by Dhananjoy to his supervisor. The court did not consider this conflict of interest. According to the official story, after Hetal's death, her mother took her to the doctor, even though she was already dead. Why did it take the police 3 hours to be informed? Why did Hetal's mother leave the city after the trial? And why did her father leave soon after? The copy of the complaint against Dhananjoy was never presented in court. The evidence list submitted had the signature of a tea vendor. After hearing all these arguments, some people might still agree with Dhananjoy's death sentence, which isn't necessarily wrong. It's entirely possible that Dhananjoy was guilty. However, it's important to understand that justice is a human concept, and while punishment is necessary for wrongdoing, the concept of falsehood is also human-made. Thus, just because someone says something doesn't mean they're guilty. This is why laws are in place to ensure punishment is carefully administered, to avoid mistakenly freeing a criminal or wrongly punishing an innocent person. Since the law is a human system, mistakes are inevitable because humans are not perfect. Legislators were aware of this, which is why they ensured that it's better to mistakenly let a guilty person go free than to wrongly punish an innocent one. In death penalty cases, this principle becomes even more critical because, in regular sentences, mistakes can be corrected with release or compensation. But in death penalties, the wrong cannot be undone. Therefore, it's crucial to ensure that the case is rarest of the rare, and the accused's guilt must be proven beyond any reasonable doubt. All logical questions should be answered, and it must be clear that the accused did, in fact, commit the crime. You can decide for yourself whether Dhananjoy's case was beyond doubt or not. The purpose of sharing this story is not to upset anyone, but to raise awareness and keep you informed. What is your opinion about this entire incident? Let us know in the comment box. If you appreciated our effort, please like and share this video. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. Thank you.